You know that exact moment when you're sitting in a cafe or at your dining room table and someone is right in front of you telling a super important story. It could be your best friend, your life partner, or even your boss. You're there, physically present. Your eyes are locked on theirs. You're nodding your head, agreeing at the perfectly precise moments. You even let out a few, wow, really? That's crazy, almost automatically. From the outside, to anyone passing by on the street and looking at you, you seem like the most engaged, empathetic, and focused listener on the planet. But then, suddenly, in the middle of the person's speech, something terrifying and silent happens inside your head. It's as if a thick, cold, soundproof glass wall descends in slow motion between the two of you. The person's voice loses clarity, becomes distant, as if they were speaking underwater. Your soul literally leaves your body and takes a walk around the block. You enter a kind of waking social coma, and then despair hits. The person makes a dramatic pause in their story, looks at you expectantly, waiting for a response, and your mind screams in absolute panic. My God, what the hell did she just say for the last 3 minutes? I have no idea. If you've ever experienced that mental block, needing to force a smile followed by that universal catchphrase of yeah, it's complicated, isn't it? Sweating profusely just to disguise it. I know exactly the weight you carry. You go home feeling overwhelming guilt. Your whole life you've been pointed at and called distracted, spaced out, or even worse, selfish. Society and etiquette manuals teach you that if you zone out it's because you're rude, egocentric, or simply don't care at all about who's talking. And then the internet gurus tell you to practice active listening, tell you to try harder, drink a strong cup of coffee, and focus with all your might on the present moment. But let me tell you a brutal and liberating secret that neuroscience already knows, but that no one dares to admit out loud, and that will take a huge weight off your shoulders today. Your blackout in the middle of a conversation is not rudeness and has absolutely nothing to do with disinterest. In fact, the saddest irony of it all is that you most likely switch off precisely when you're talking to the people you love most and don't want to disappoint. Your brain hasn't malfunctioned. You don't have a factory defect. Quite the opposite. It worked perfectly and activated a brilliant survival mechanism. This switching off is literally a biological circuit breaker tripping to prevent your nervous system from frying from processing so much information at the same time. Today, we're going to enter the fascinating laboratory of your exhausted mind together. I'm going to show you, based on clinical psychology, why trying to be a perfect listener is the exact recipe for not being able to hear anything at all. And I'm going to give you a simple anti-awkwardness protocol to restart your social battery without having to pretend you understood everything and without offending those you love. So take a deep breath, lean back in your chair, take the weight off your shoulders of having to give me an EUHI every 10 seconds, and come with me. The first thing we need to completely destroy is the romantic idea that listening to someone is a passive activity, where all you have to do is stay quiet and let the other person's voice enter your ears. For your brain, especially if you are a person more sensitive to stimuli, a simple 10-minute social interaction is a true high-performance marathon. And the biggest thief of your vital energy is not the subject the person is talking about. It's what you're doing with your own body to appear to be listening. Psychology calls this social camouflage or social masking. Think of your brain as a very powerful computer, but one with a clear limit to its RAM. When you're in a conversation, your mind isn't just running to process the other person's words application. You have dozens of other applications running exhaustively and uninterruptedly in the background. You're meticulously calculating whether your eye contact is good or if you're staring like a psychopath. You're regulating your smile, deciding the exact moment to nod, paying attention to your posture so as not to appear sloppy. And, as if all this internal theater weren't enough, your nervous system is frantically trying to filter out the noise of the air conditioning, the background music in the restaurant, the waiter passing by, and the flashing white light on the ceiling. The cruel and silent irony of your life is that you strive so hard to be an impeccable listener. You expend so much energy trying to prove to the other person that you care, that your brain's processing load reaches 100% capacity. The engine overheats. The red light comes on, and like any high-tech system, when the machine is about to melt down, the body takes a drastic and immediate action to protect you from total collapse. It simply unplugs the application that consumes the most energy at that exact moment. And guess what that application is? Your sustained attention. The science behind this, extensively studied in polyvagal theory, is fascinating. Our basic, primitive animal instinct when faced with a threat or unbearable overload is to fight or flee. But at a dinner table, when your social battery plummets to zero due to this sensory exhaustion, you can't simply get up from your chair silently and frantically run out of the restaurant, leaving your friend talking to themselves. Since physical escape is socially unacceptable, your brain activates the last remaining biological safety resource, the dorsal vagal state. The dorsal vagal syncope is the nervous system's freezing mode. It's a surgical microdose. You physically freeze in your chair to survive that environment. Your eyes are open, your body obeys on autopilot, smiling and agreeing, but psychologically, there's no one home. You've fled into yourself. The other person's voice becomes just a warm hum without any logical translation. You didn't shut down because of a lack of love. You shut down because of an absolute excess of internal processing, trying to hide this exhaustion from the world, living under the constant terror of being unmasked. As a terrible friend is a lonely prison that drains the joy from any relationship. And since we're talking about batteries that suddenly run out, about interactions that suck your soul, and about your desperate need to find an environment where you can simply exist without having to perform, I want to extend an invitation that requires 0% of your social battery. Make this channel your official safe haven and click the subscribe button right now. Do you know why this is the most comfortable and intelligent decision your exhausted brain can make right now? Because on other social media platforms, and even in your real life, you're forced to interact all the time. You have to like, comment, reply to messages, smile, send audio back. Not Eddie. By clicking this button and subscribing, you send a clear and biological message to your nervous system that you've found a space where the main rule is. Here I can let my guard down. You can come here and watch in your pajamas without making eye contact with the screen. Daydream in the middle of the video and rewind 10 times if necessary. And I give you my word that I will never judge you for it. Let me take on the hard work of reading dozens of complex neuroscience books and bring you the chewed up and validated solution. You just need to click now, subscribe, sit comfortably in the passenger seat, and focus on understanding yourself better. Agreed. Great. Because now we're going to destroy the biggest and most harmful myth about social interactions, the one that's truly to blame for your daily blackouts. Remember that golden rule of etiquette that your mother, your teachers, and your bosses taught you since childhood, the one that says, look me straight in the eyes while I'm talking to you. Otherwise, it's a sign that you're not paying attention. That might work for many people, but for a brain that overheats quickly like yours, forced eye contact is like shooting yourself in the foot. Human faces are, by far, the most visually dense and absurdly complex objects in the entire universe for our brains to process. Every microsecond, a person's eyes move, an eyebrow raises, the corner of their mouth twitches, and their pupils dilate. Trying to keep your eyes fixed on someone's face while they speak sends an apocalyptic volume of visual data directly to your cerebral cortex. And the neurological rule of energy conservation is very clear. If your brain is using too much power to see and decode the other person's facial movements, there's a lack of energy in the auditory cortex to process the sound and meaning of the words. The two systems begin to compete fiercely, and since vision is our primary survival tool in nature, it always wins the battle. So, let's demystify this once and for all. When you look away and stare at a random point on the wall, a glass of water on the table, or look out the window while someone tells you a complex story, you're not being rude. You're doing visual decompression. Your brain, in an act of absurd intelligence, closes the door to vision to keep the door to hearing open. When your gaze wanders to the horizon, your hearing awakens. That's why the best conversations of your life, where you truly pay attention, happen when you're driving, looking at the road, or washing dishes with your back to the person. So, how do we deal with a blackout in real life, in practice? When it inevitably happens and the person on the other end is staring at you waiting for an answer you don't have. The worst thing you can do is use the standard survival tactic you've used until now. Agree, pretending you heard, saying that classic "yeah, I understand" is like playing social Russian roulette. You run a very high risk of agreeing with something terrible, and on top of that, you spend the rest of the conversation in a morbid state of anxiety, hunting for clues in the context to try and guess what the heck you were talking about. The battery, which was already in the red, finally explodes. The master stroke is to replace Russian roulette with tactical transparency. Why? The next time your circuit breaker trips and your consciousness returns to your body, take a deep breath, give a small, sincere smile, and acknowledge the system failure with extreme elegance and vulnerability. You will gently interrupt the person and say exactly the following phrase. "Oh, I'm sorry. My mind just skipped a little bit here. My brain sometimes processes too much at once and it just pops out for a few seconds. Could you repeat that last part for me, please? I lost my train of thought, but I really want to hear you because what you're saying is important." Do you know what happens when you use this surgical phrase? The magic of immediate disarming. You remove ego and lies from the equation. You're not blaming the other person for being annoying, and you're not hiding like an imposter. You confess that your system froze, and at the same time, you reinforce that the person is so important to you that you refuse to pretend you're listening. You truly want to understand. In 99% of cases, the person not only repeats the phrase with extreme goodwill, but also feels deeply respected by your sincerity and your conscious effort to want to be there with them. Your involuntary disconnection doesn't make you a villain, nor does it make you an indifferent or cold person. In fact, you are a powerful and highly sensitive processor, operating in a world that is too noisy, that demands too quick responses and too many fake smiles. The next time you daydream and stare at the ceiling in the middle of a coffee, don't punish yourself and don't lower your head. It's just your body taking care of you and saying, "Hey, that's enough for today. We need to pause for a minute so we don't break the engine." Allow yourself not to be present 100% of the time. Embrace your biological fatigue. Use transparency to your advantage and stop demanding the overwhelming performance of the perfect listener from yourself. You don't need to prove your empathy by destroying your own energy. We'll see you in the next video on this Chimi with our batteries fully recharged.